guys look at this dog that my friend is house sitting for. Her name is Lulu. You're the light of my life. You're completely unaware of your own existence. You have no schedule. But she's like, oh, I don't want to be in your video. Hello, my subservients. I know that you know why I've gathered you here today, but if there was no title on this video and no thumbnail, you just came in blind, and I said, it's time to talk about a spectacular failure of a horror movie that is part of a greater trilogy, then at least 3 franchises would come to mind. David Gordon Green being responsible for 2 of them, bless him. It all feels indicative of a much larger issue, which is, say it with me class, late stage capitalism. Yes. Hi there, I'm the Antichrist in the beautiful flesh at your service. We talk about horror movies in this cult. Click subscribe to devote your soul. Click the like button to devote your algorithm. Today I'm not just reviewing The Strangers Chapter 1 because I'm getting this review up kind of late. So I'm also going to be comparing it to the original, which I rewatched the day before I went to go see the new one. If you're a returning cult member, then it's not going to be like my traditional versus videos. I have done a lot of original verse remakes in my day and they're heavily researched. That's not what's going on today. It is a review but with a heavy emphasis on the comparison, and so it's also kind of going to service as a review of the original movie too. I feel like that'll be a brief section because there's just not that much to spoil. So much of it was spoiled in the trailer and so much of it is a carbon copy of the original. So that's how it's going to go down today. I will give you a warning before I start getting into spoilers, of course. But without further ado, I thought that I would kick things off by talking about my experience with the original movie. If you somehow don't know, this is probably the most iconic home invasion movie maybe ever made. It definitely kickstarted the subgenre in 2008, and we've gotten a lot of movies like it since. It just follows this couple as a handful of masked deviants break into their home. My first time viewing the original was, I think, about 3 years ago in 2021, and I wasn't a fan of it at the time, but I kind of kick myself now because the first time that I watched it, it was definitely not at nighttime. I don't think that I watched it just fully during the day, but I remember that it was still light outside, and I hadn't upgraded my TV or my soundbar at the time. It just wasn't good viewing conditions, you know? And I really was not impressed with the movie. I gave it only 2 stars, and oh my god, I wrote so much. If I want to read an essay, then I will go read the opinion of someone that is paid to write about films, or I'll watch a video essay, or like I'll watch a YouTube video. The fact that I wrote this much, oh my god, relax. 2 stars for strong characters and it being a technically well-made movie. I just want to know why so much nothing happens in this movie. It takes so long to get going, and even when the action starts, it feels like there's still so much waiting around, and the ending feels really anticlimactic as a result. I'm scared of home invasions in real life, so I really don't know why this movie didn't do it for me, but alas. I feel like I would have needed to see it in a theater, which is ironic because it should have been scarier to watch at home. Fast forward to 3 years later, I am watching it with my friend Leanne. We smoke a little bit. It's dark, it's late at night, we're watching it on a better TV. 2.5 stars, and James is definitely a rat fuck bitch if you think about it, actually. So not too much of an improvement, surprisingly. The second time around, I do still like the characters. Like, I love the initial setup. I love the drama of it all. Not really a spoiler because it happens. It's like the first scene that you kind of get an understanding of the situation these guys are in. But the drama of her having said no to his proposal, thought it was set up so well. These people felt so real to me. Their hurt, like, that came through. I'm not crazy about a lot of the performance from Liv Tyler because she just, she exhibits some of my pet peeves. She does a little bit of whisper acting, like soft girl talking, where she's like, but I love you. I'm sorry, James. It's sort of like how Billie Eilish sings, and I'm not trying to come for how Billie Eilish sings. I love Billie Eilish, but it's just similar. Like, you know how she like kind of whisper sings? It just irks me a bit. And also the characters are mind-numbingly stupid. That's been said a lot about the new movie. People are complaining about that like nothing else. I feel like people are just parroting each other at this point, because in my opinion, the characters of the original are more stupid than the new ones, but we'll get to that. And in turn, because of that, the movie gets so generic by the ending. I love the setup. Like, I think that the first maybe 20 minutes of the movie are perfect. And I was like, oh my god, thank god. Like, I went into it the second time thinking, I'm definitely gonna like it more this time around. And for the first 20 minutes, I was like, yep, I was right. I knew it. This is gonna be great. But it totally fizzles out because when you have horror movie characters that are just being really stupid, I feel like it's impossible for it not to become generic. I just don't think that the original movie is all that. I know that it has its iconic dialogue, and we'll get into that with spoilers. And I know that at the time it must have been really impactful because it was sort of, you know, one of the first of its kind. Like, not really, because, you know, we have things all the way back from the 70s, like the Black Christmas and then When a Stranger Calls. It's hardly the first home invasion, I know that. But the first, like, I don't know, is it a home invasion slasher? I guess. All that to say, the remake just did not have that much to live up to for me. And I'm sure that about half of you guys were in the same boat because I feel like the audience for The Strangers is so split. If you want to hear from somebody that absolutely loves the original Strangers, then go check out my friend Tiago. He just posted like a 30-minute deep dive of the original and the sequel. I learned a lot and I definitely appreciate the movie a lot more now, having learned all the behind the scenes. Like, it's impossible for that not to happen. Also, Tiago made his own like little short film for the intro of that. Very proud friend moment, I have to say. I know that he'll be releasing his review of the new one soon as well. But for me, I just don't think the original movie is all that. So that was kind of the attitude that I was bringing to both the sequel and Strangers Chapter 1. Pray at Night surprised me so much. I actually love that movie. So then after seeing that, I was like, oh, okay, so maybe the remake can be fun. I don't know how a remake to The Strangers can be fun. I would have preferred a sequel for sure, but there's definitely potential. Like, I definitely have caught the vibe of these villains now. I liked it a lot more in the sequel. But the fact that it was a trilogy, if you've been following me for pretty much any length of time, or if you've caught any of my like horror movie news streams, I've talked a lot about how I'm just not hyped for a Strangers trilogy. I don't know what about any of that could get me excited. And Strangers Chapter 1, it did indeed live up to the anti-hype. On YouTube, I saw a surprising amount of like decent reviews, at least judging by the thumbnails. I don't know. On Letterboxd, it was a little bit more of a bloodbath, and on Rotten Tomatoes, oh honey. The best way that I can think to describe of The Strangers Chapter 1 is that it is a trailer that's been stretched out to 90 minutes long. And it's the same setup. It is a couple that gets stuck out in this podunk town and they have to get this Airbnb for a night, and then the strangers come and start harassing them. Believe it or not, I actually watched this trailer, and I never watch trailers, especially for movies that I'm excited for. But the thing is, I was not excited for this movie, and I had all my suspicions, and I just knew, and I was right. So I did something that I had never done before actually. Over on Patreon, I did a comparison of the original trailer and the new one, and they were almost beat for beat exactly the same. So of course there was like that little sliver in me that was like, well, maybe it's a marketing ploy. They're selling it to us as a carbon copy, but there's actually gonna be so much more fun stuff in the actual movie. Wrong. No. I think the only reason why I had that little sliver of hope is because they went into it knowing it was gonna be a trilogy, allegedly, and allegedly they shot them all back to back, and so the next one is coming out later this year, and I guess the third one is coming out next year, right? They were like, actually, we are learning from the mistakes of Halloween, so you can't tell us shit. To me, it feels like they went, okay, well, job well done. Movie's done. It's a carbon copy of the original. Easy money. And then somebody burst into the room and was like, wait, before you do the final export, the studio execs want to make this a trilogy? So then in like 12 hours, they just shot like a quick little ending, tacked it on, and called it a day. That's what it feels like. Like, I don't really believe that any part of this trilogy was shot back to back. Even if they did this one first and then shot parts 2 and 3 back to back, I don't know, and I don't care. This first one, like, you cannot tell me, you can't tell me that it was originally planned to be a trilogy. I don't believe you. Okay, actually, you know what? No, there's a tiny bit of evidence to maybe suggest that it was pre-planned. It's very thin, but it's there. There are some random characters throughout the movie that truly contribute absolutely nothing, like they just burn time. So if I want to be optimistic, then I guess I could say that, okay, maybe they weren't just random, maybe they contribute to the larger story and they'll come back. I guess that has to be what it is, because I think that Richard Brake was there, but I'm pretty sure that he had no lines of dialogue, which that's a sin. How dare you? I don't care if he's just for the ambiance in the first movie, you better give him dialogue. And on that note, Richard Brake was there, yay! So I guess that does mean there is some reason to have some hope for the sequel, because if he has a bigger role, then of course I'll be seated. He's a character actor that I feel like doesn't get his flowers. I wish that somebody would cast him in like a nice role. Just let him be like a nice guy one time. The poor man, he is so heavily typecast. More positives, I love watching Madeline Petch. I think that's how you say her name, I don't know. I recently restarted Riverdale and I love that show in the way that I love fast food, you know what I mean? I think she's a fantastic actor. I love her in that show so much. So you're never gonna convince me that her acting was bad in this movie, but I do have some notes. People are gonna say that her acting was bad. I know that they will. I think that they're gonna say that both of their acting was bad. I don't think that's the case. I think that the writing was so unbearably clunky, and I know that it's kind of a double-edged sword because obviously you're probably gonna need some dialogue for exposition. Some dialogue is always bound to be an exposition dump. In this movie, it is clunky, clanky, clunker, clonking, stinky. Every sentence is just like, oh, I'm tired of sitting. Well, that's because we're on day 3 of our cross-country road trip. Yeah, I know, I'm so sorry. I just really hope that I get this job here. It's just not naturalistic at all. And also, I don't really love the pairing of these actors. Like I said, I love Madeline. I am completely unfamiliar with, what's his face? Froy Gutierrez. I like that his name is Froy. I've never heard that name before. Nothing against either of them. I just don't really think that they had much chemistry together. And maybe that wasn't the issue. Maybe it really just was the dialogue, but just nothing really felt that natural between them. Hi, I'm editing. I learned while searching for a picture of Froy that he's gay. So that explains a bit of the chemistry issue for me personally. Because his acting was fine. All the rest of his acting, it was great. I mean, plenty of gay actors have had chemistry with women on screen before, but you know, I think it depends. I think that helps explain it a little bit. I feel like I was supposed to be talking about my positives and then that derailed into another negative. I'm sorry. I loved her in the movie. Like, she made the movie watchable for me. I don't think that it's as big of a mess as everyone is claiming it to be. It has a lot of problems. Like, I gave it 2 stars. Okay, that's a bad movie, but I just don't think that it's worth like the half star or 1 star, a lot of the stuff that I'm seeing from people. If that's like their experience and their emotion, like they just were rating it based on vibes and their feelings watching it, valid. But I think in terms of quality, if that's the type of quality you're expecting, like a half-star film, I don't think that that's accurate. I know that everybody rates in their own ways on Letterboxd, so I feel like that is something worth saying. What I will leave you with is that you can skip this one in theaters. The only positive that I took away from the trailer when I watched the trailer in theaters was like, oh, this sound design, this is gonna be like a good, raucous, fun time. If nothing else, even if it's bad, which it looked bad, I was thinking the sound design and watching this in the theater, like, I'm gonna have fun. I just was determined to have fun. I got bored. I was really bored in the theater. I feel like it's a movie that you can definitely check your phone to. No, don't do that. Don't do that with any movie. It just kind of breaks my heart that this movie, I think it's already made its budget back. Well, definitely by now, by the time this video goes up. When movies like Immaculate and Lisa Frankenstein, they were shown almost no love. Like, people loved those movies. They definitely have their own little cult following now. But in terms of trying to get other original projects greenlit and in theaters, it just makes it even harder when movies like this are gonna far outperform those. It's just, stinky. Boo, 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 tomato. Wait for streaming on this one, and before I get into spoilers, I just have one more thing to say. This remake once again confirms that The Strangers Prey at Night is elite. Yup. Strangers Prey at Night Hive, rise up, follow your leader, and validate the filmmakers that brought us that dream. And I've upset Chip. I'm sorry, Chip. Oh, Chip is he's just gonna spin around a little bit. Hi, buddy. Oh, are you okay? What's up, buddy? You know what? If nothing else, the remake is making people go back and appreciate Prey at Night a lot more. I've been seeing that on Twitter, and I'm most pleased about that. I think that'll do it for my spoiler-free section. There's just really not enough to get into with this movie. I promise you, it's just a 90-minute long trailer for the rest of the trilogy. Save your money, doll, okay? All right, let's get into spoilers. Let's get into all the comparisons to the original. So remember, now you are no longer safe if you haven't seen the original or the remake. And we're getting into no spoilers for Prey at Night today because, you know, just in case, I really want you to watch that movie. So obviously the setup is almost exactly the same. There are definitely things that I can appreciate, the way that they kind of modernized it, the way that they changed up the character dynamic. It just wasn't changed enough. Like, these are subtle little differences that I would say, oh, that's a remake done right. If they had changed larger elements of the movie too, but that would include things like this couple, the new couple, they decide to finally get engaged after being together for 5 years. Much different dynamic, right? And then instead of being home, they get stuck in this Airbnb. Oh, hi, Chip. What do you want from me, honey? He's not shivering because he's cold and he's got brain damage. That's why he spins about. Also, I think that he's the stinky one. I think it's it. I'm pretty sure because it's been just bombs in here. I've been trying to film and I'm like, at first, I thought that the Airbnb idea was really cool because I thought that it would allow for like a lot more layers to the situation. I thought that a grand reveal was gonna be that the whole town was in on it, and maybe in the sequel that's what it's gonna be. But then that means that they just left nothing of interest in the first movie to intrigue us further on, which we'll get to that later when we talk about the ending. But then the setup became such a carbon copy, down to them starting to have sex before there's a knock at the door, and down to them still asking dang, is Tamra home? One thing that I think the original definitely does better is revealing character dynamics throughout the movie more. Because in the remake, yes, I was surprised when he proposed. I thought that that was kind of a cute moment that like genuinely shocked me, and I was like, oh, that's nice. I'm sure that that was not surprising at all to some people, but I didn't see that coming. But in the original, I did find it a lot more interesting because the reason why my Letterboxd review was so mean to James is because I like how it's revealed throughout that he's just kind of an asshole. But it's really subtle, and then oh, I start to forgive Liv Tyler's character for speaking to him really softly all the time. At one point he reveals that he just straight up lied about something, and you're like, what, weirdo? And it's just more little things like that sprinkled throughout that kind of helped to maintain my interest in these people more, despite the fact that they were being so dumb and despite the fact that the horror elements were getting really repetitive. But oh my god, how can I talk about characters without talking about the fact that Glenn Howerton shows up in the original just to die? That is iconic. And I imagine that back in 2008 when It's Always Sunny had a couple of seasons out by then and he, you know, was a rising star, that was like a big moment, you know, that was his kind of like Drew Barrymore Scream moment. Love that. That was probably one of my favorite parts of the movie. I do feel like the performances are better in the original, but again, I can't tell if that's just chalked down to the writing. The filmmaking itself is again really hard to compare because technique is just so different now than it was 16 years ago. In the original, I love the soft lighting. I love the orange lighting. It's very moody. There's a lot of shadow work. I still think it's a really well-made film. In the remake, I was really surprised by how lit it actually was, because in a lot of movies today, my number one complaint is just it's too dark. I can't see. Like with this remake, I was for sure expecting that I would be like, huh, but it was actually fine. And in fact, some of the shots I found really beautiful. Nighttime shots with backlighting, you know, and the characters become very silhouetted and the light kind of filters through the trees. I thought that was really beautiful and almost like Rembrandt-esque. Now the bar is low. I'm not saying it was like one of the most beautiful movies I've ever seen. It was far from that. But in terms of aesthetics, I was like kind of sadly a little bit surprised. It was nice. In terms of scares, I do feel like throughout maybe the first half of the original, they're decent. It's kind of hard to enjoy them, again, like I said, because the characters' choices are so dumb. So you can't fully bask in the horror of it or in the jump scare of it all because you're too busy thinking like, well, why the hell did you do that? Of course something bad happened. Ooh, I feel like it's getting darker outside. Ooh. Towards the second half is when they get really, really egregious and kind of generic. But in terms of the first half of the movie, I definitely like the scares a lot more in the original because the ones in the remake are so stupid. And about 3 of them, I think 3 that I can remember, rely entirely, like they hinge on the fact that these main characters do not have peripheral vision. Like apparently, I don't know. The shower scene was far and away the most egregious. I couldn't believe that. Also, Tiago made this point to me and it was a really good point because we were texting furiously after he got out of the theater. He was saying there's a reason why her partner's initial trip out of the house is cut out of the first movie because we don't need to see it. When he goes to get his inhaler and food, like I said, it's meaningless. He runs into all these meaningless characters, and there's one really, really stupid scare with the mechanic, and I forget his line. It was something really stupid, and I was gonna make a good joke, but I forgot, because it's not that memorable of a movie. What are you gonna do? Oh my gosh, this is too dark. Ooh, that might be too bright. Is it? I don't know. I feel like it's a little bit better. We're gonna do it. I can't help but feel like it was just a time-wasting mechanism, because then I also think about her lighting up that joint, and Madeline, I love your acting. I think that you're wonderful. I think that you're one of the most beautiful women in the world, but you don't know how to light and smoke a joint to save your life. And I thought that that was so funny. She's doing her best, but that scene made me laugh. And then probably the worst scare of them all has to be that tacked on corny ass end credit scene of her in the hospital. And why they broke it up, I have no idea. Just put the whole thing in one spot. Like, it was ridiculous. To be fair, I do find the endings of both films to be rather anticlimactic. I do find the line of dialogue because you were home infinitely more impactful than because you're here. Because you're here it's just too vague. Like, here where? In this town? In this Airbnb? Like, it's just not menacing because I'm like, wait, I have follow-up questions. But anyway, yeah, so the worst scare, definitely by far, was just that little jump scare moment where, again, the peripheral vision. Where is she? We don't know her. The baghead guy is like laying in the hospital bed with her when she sits up. And so I'm like, okay, are we pulling a Halloween Kills? Is The Strangers Chapter 2 gonna be in the hospital? The strangers die tonight? I don't know. I left the movie pretty confused. I just thought that they had to have a little bit more something up their sleeve if they were gonna build an entire trilogy on the strangers. It is the last franchise probably that I would choose for a trilogy. And how on earth am I supposed to be invested in the second film when I know that our main character is gonna make it out of it again? At least with Halloween Kills, like, we had our 3 main girlies, you know, so we knew that we would probably lose one of them in Halloween Kills. In this one, it's like, well, there's no more characters that I care about. Like, there's all the assholes from that little town. Is that it? Anyway, my camera's dying, so I'm gonna take that as a sign to just wrap this up. I am gonna go see the sequel because it just has to be different than the first one. There has to be something else there, right? And it's coming out this year, so you know, might as well. And also, I'm an AMC A-lister, so I can see 3 movies a week anyways. I would love to know all of your thoughts on this movie. I know there's a lot of funny stuff that I didn't even touch. Maybe I'll get into it if I decide to review chapter 2 in October, but for now you guys can just leave whatever I left out in the comments down below. If you also enjoy travel content, then maybe you'd be surprised to learn that this is not my home. I am in the UK right now visiting some dear friends of mine. I've also been traveling all up and down Italy, so I have a lot of content coming out to my second channel pretty soon. I also post a lot of physical media content over there, so right now it's about 50-50 with vlogs and physical media content. I also have a Patreon where you get yet another bonus weekly video. So all the information that you need is linked down below. Also, all my social media is there too. But more than anything, I just hope that you enjoyed this video and I hope I catch you in the next one. Bye!